You know, I want to focus on that mine attitude that Daffy Duck had on the Bugs Bunny show. You should look it up. And if you're a MAGA voter and you're in your 50s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've seen it 1,000 times. And it was funny, it was a cartoon. Bugs Bunny was very funny, and it was meant to be funny, but it was also meant to be poetic and profound. And it was. And there was a mountain of gold, some jewels, but the gold was the focal point of the wealth that was found. And Bugs was always cool. Bugs Bunny, he was always cool, and he didn't need the money. He liked the money, but he didn't need it. It wasn't important to him. You know, and when Daphne found it, and Daphne went nuts over the money. He went nuts over the money. It was like Christmas all over again, and you know, but the ugly side of Daphne came out in that, that Bugs Bunny tried to take one little gold coin, and Daphne was just like not having it, not having it. It was like, this is mine, and none of it is yours. Not even one piece of gold is yours. And they both barely found it. I mean, it wasn't like Daphne had some precedence in finding it. They both found it pretty much equally, but Daphne just went beyond the pale and just showed his true colors of how greedy and selfish and rotten he was to the core. And Bugs just stood back and looked at him like, what an idiot. Like, how can you be so greedy? How can you be so stupid? There was so much gold. It was just pathetically outpouring. There was just, you could never spend the amount of gold that was there. It was like Lord of the Rings when they found the gold in Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit. I don't know if it was The Hobbit, but it was just a immense amount of gold. And there's no way you couldn't even carry it. You couldn't move it. But Daphne was a man having Bugs having one coin, and he was just like mine, 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 mine. And that's what MAGA people are. MAGA people are Daphne. They're very selfish, very selfish. And it doesn't stop at money. Money. And the funny thing is, most of these people don't have any money. They're poor. They're white trash. Uh, they're uneducated. They're plumbers, electricians, and ditch diggers and stuff. And they're not. They don't have any money, real money. And and they all dream. They all dream of the Ferrari. They all dream of the mansion and the blonde wife and the three beautiful kids, but not because they want three beautiful kids or they want the beautiful wife or the house. They just want the prestige. They just want everybody to want what they have. And they really don't want that stuff. They just want the ego boost. They want the ego pump, you know. And when that stuff stops pumping the ego, they need more. They need a new wife. They need new kids. They need a new house. They need a new car. The old car became an old car. It could be a year old, but it's now an old car. It's not a new car anymore. So it's no longer good. We need a new one. The watch that costs $50,000, it, it's no good because it's not new. And Apple and all these companies live off people that want new. You know, Everybody has to get the latest version of the iPhone, or the latest iPad, and now the latest MacBook. But and there's a lot of reasons for Apple to do that, and the updates and the changes, and I understand that, and it really falls short as my example. But the car companies, everybody wants a new car because it has the latest uh, electronics in it and stuff, and it's not always better. I mean, there was a Tesla that just went through a house and killed an old lady sitting there watching TV, and it was on the autopilot, and the autopilot just took off and went through the house, and the guy lost control of the car. And it was the latest car. It was a piece of crap. It killed someone. But it's all part of the mind, 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 mind. Greedy, greedy. Uh, Nobody goes to a car dealership and says, "Give me the 3-year-old model." You know, they want the new model. They want the one that didn't come out yet. You have to wait a month to get it. It's coming. It's not there yet. You know, you have to wait a month to pick it up. But they want that car, because nobody has it. Kind of thing. Back to the Daffy thing. And you have a president that's like that, that has that mind, mind, mind attitude, and all the people around him that surround him have the mind, mind, mind attitude. It's just, and I'm just Bugs Bunny standing there saying, "What a bunch of idiots! What a bunch of idiots!" You can't take it with you. I don't care how all that gold in that cave. Daphne couldn't take it with him if he died, and you know, so what value is it? And the value it really does do is show how pathetic you are. And you know sometimes it's hard to tell how pathetic a person is until they're confronted with a certain situation in life. You don't know how much of a coward someone is until someone points a gun at them and they grovel for their life. You know, and before the gun, they were king of the world. They were the tough man on campus. They were going to beat everybody up, and you put a gun to their head, and they're crying in their shit, saying, "Don't pull the trigger," and stuff like that. So, you need a wake up moment like that to see the real character of a person. And this gold for Daphne was his character moment. And, the presidency for Trump is his character moment, how he's selling out the country so he can get crypto, his crypto in charge, and trying to make the most money out of and sell the presidency to the highest bidder. And you know, and it's just showing his true character, and it's showing all the MAGA people that voted for him. It's showing their true character, and it's pretty ugly. It's like Daffy was ugly. Well, the MAGA people are ugly too. They're very ugly. President Trump is very ugly, and his cabinet, everybody in his cabinet, are very ugly. I don't know how many cabinet members before they became cabinet members said Trump was the worst president. Talking about his first term, they're saying he's the worst president of the world, the worst thing for this country, and now they're like, oh, he's the best thing that ever in sliced bread. He couldn't do anything wrong. He only has the best interest of the country at heart. And it's all crap because they're all crap people. And their true characters coming out in this moment, and every one of them would grovel for their life, including Trump. If you pointed a gun at their head, they would all beg and give you all the gold that they can give you so you wouldn't pull the trigger. So they're very selfish, but they're very greedy, and they want you to die in a war that they started, but they aren't going to go. Like how many, Trump dodged the draft when it came to Vietnam when he was supposed to go to Vietnam, and he dodged the draft, and it's just. And Hegseth, I think he was in the National Guard or something stupid, and he didn't do nothing. He never went to war, and now he's running the Department of War. Oh my God! And it's just all these names, the Gulf of America. I mean, it's all crap. It's all crap. It's mine, mine, mine. They can't have the Gulf of Mexico. It has to be the Gulf of America, and Greenland has to be ours. It's just the mine, mine, mine. Canada, mine, mine, mine. And it's just pathetic. It's really, 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 really pathetic. And the news people that prop them up and don't attack them. You know, Colbert being fired because of his jokes about Trump, because Trump has no skin. He has very thin skin. And, you know, again, pathetic, pathetic. Mine, 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 mine. You can't talk about me uh, or my failures, only my successes. And they have no successes. All their successes are made up. They're not real successes, you know. So, it's just, and they attack everybody, in so many different ways, The Haitians that were eating cats and dogs became a big deal um, because they had nothing, and they were pushing a big immigrant agenda and painting the Haitians as eating cats and dogs is like that's why we're kicking them out of the country because they eat cats and dogs, and it's all bullshit. So when you fall for this, you really have no